So most people that reach out to us for help or legal advice do so by phone. So let me run through the process that's involved when people do call our firm. So we have a front desk receptionist, and they're here full time. Literally their job is just to answer the telephones. We have 2 primary and then 2 backups. We have a pretty large team of receptionists. And when someone calls in, first thing we do obviously is get their name and number and find out why they're calling. So we need to make sure that the reason that they're calling us fits with what we do. So for example, if they're calling because they need a criminal defense lawyer, we don't practice criminal defense law. We are very specialized in personal injury, plaintiff side only. So we would let them know respectfully that we don't practice that area of law, and perhaps give them some names of folks that do and might be a good fit. But assuming that they are calling in on a personal injury claim, we then get their name and contact information. And importantly, we get the contact information and name, ideally, of the adverse person, the person that caused the harm. Why? Because we have to ethically run a conflict check to make sure we're not related to that person or we don't otherwise represent them in a different context. Because we don't want to create a conflict of interest where we're taking on one person to hire us and going after another one of our clients. It just doesn't work because we have a duty to each client that's ours. So once the case passes the conflict check, at that point we take additional information down and we get over to one of our lawyers. And we only have 5, it's not like a massive firm, we keep it small intentionally. So one of us will call that person back and then have a more detailed conversation in terms of what happened, where it happened. Maybe I gather some photographs of the event. Let's say it's a car crash at an intersection. We'd like to know what the intersection looks like. We would pull up a Google Earth and look at the intersection with them via video conference or in person if they like. So there's a whole method that goes through in terms of the investigatory side before we even sign the client up, okay? But once we verify that there's liability, okay, in other words, the other person is provably at fault, okay, there's causation, meaning that there is real damage, real injuries that stem from, in this case, that collision. And there's value to those damages. There's medical bills, there's lost wages, there's pain and suffering, for example. And it makes sense to engage a lawyer to where we know we're going to do good for the client and likely put them in a better position than they'd be without us. Once we check those boxes, we then would offer the potential client the opportunity to become one of our clients. And if they agreed, then we sign a relatively simple fee agreement and we start ordering the records and whatnot. We send out letters to the insurance carriers and we begin aggressively pursuing their case to the extent we can based on their treatment status and the evidence status at that time.